So, David, if I'm correct, I believe the first lockdown that we had was around March 23rd, and 9 months later, we're almost back to square one once again. How did we get here so quickly?
Well, Mark, I mean, I think there's no playbook for COVID-19, and we're seeing globally right now a number of strict lockdown measures being taken with the second wave. We're seeing it obviously in the UK, very harsh restrictions announced. In Italy, Germany, we're going to be seeing it across this country, and we just when it comes to our people's lives and when it comes to the integrity of our ICU system, of our hospitals, the acute care bed structure that we have in the province of Ontario, we have to act decisively. And I mean, Ontarians didn't elect me to make easy decisions. We have to act decisively here to protect Ontarians. We've been doing well up until now. Obviously, the increasing case numbers are very concerning, and we've had to impose these restrictions, which are very difficult. I understand, very difficult for many, but necessary.
David, where do you stand personally on the decision by your government that was made today?
Well, I mean, we always, have vigorous debates and disagreements, but I think the bottom line here is when I talk locally with our Ontario Health team and the partners around that table, when I talk to our hospital CEOs, when I talk to frontline workers, which I do on a regular basis, and they express their concern over the spread, when I get people emailing me and look, these are some of the same people that say, why are you locking down? And then in the same vein, they're asking why people from Mississauga, Peel region, et cetera, are coming out. They're coming out because we don't have these restrictions, and I don't think, to be quite frank, Mark, I don't think there was a bit of fatigue, as you and I have discussed on a number of occasions, and we had to act decisively here. I mean, it is January. It is it's Christmas. We have not only a break, obviously, in terms of a holiday, that most will be partaking in, for scholastically, for schools as well, a Christmas break here. And so the impetus is to act now, to act decisively. And then in February, when we'll see obviously a greater rollout of our vaccines, but we have to act decisively to protect Ontarians here in this province. And I mean, as the Premier said today, that he won't hesitate to make moves, even with respect to the airports as well. We still see a plethora of people coming into this province. And look, we've got to act, and we've got to act now. And we know that, I would sum it up to this, Mark, when I'm out there talking to, out there door knocking, traditionally done at election time, but for me and many others, that's year round when we're out in the community. Obviously not right now, but when I'm on the phone with someone, I'd much rather them talk to me and say, Dave, how can I be eligible for the 20,000 supports? Or, I've still got fixed costs. Okay, how can I work with you to get those fixed costs covered this month until you can reopen again? I'd much rather have that conversation than, Dave, I'm calling you because my parent has passed away. My mother, my mother's at extremely high risk, having had a double bout with cancer. Our parents and loved ones in long-term care. I'm much more willing to have that conversation about small business supports than I am about the death of a loved one. That's not acceptable.
David, are we at now, excuse me, the point of COVID-19 where we're making decisions now to preserve the hospital beds that are going to be needed possibly in the future?
Yeah, I think we're making decisions now to keep the integrity of that system so that we can continue to see the elective surgeries, and so that there's also the things, Mark, like tragedies, car accidents, fires, and all sorts of accidents, heart attacks, things like that happen. And we've got to make sure there's a bed and our capacity there to help support folks in case of an emergency. And what I heard from our hospitals, and again, I mean, you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, neither of us have run a hospital, but when I get a call from our local hospital and say, David, we're very worried about what the next few weeks can look like here, I have to act. And I'm gonna, when when I want to know something about the aviation industry, I'll call Team Eagle. I'll call the experts in our community that can inform me about that. When I want to know about nuclear, I'll reach out to Cameco and others. And obviously, we're balancing all of that, Mark. So to say it's mutually exclusive would be incorrect, because we obviously care, and about a variety of issues and concerns here, the economy, our health, but predominantly when it comes to the integrity of that system, I got to lean on the experts on that system, and they're the ones that I lean on and that I'll listen to. We'll always listen to our healthcare professionals.
How are we doing locally, David, with our two hospitals in the riding? Or are you aware, or have you talked to them lately as to how we're doing there?
Yeah, I mean, things we are doing well here in our system, and we haven't had, at least to my knowledge, had to cancel any elective surgeries, and I don't want us to. I mean, we have a lot of men with prostate. We have, cancer screening for women as well. There's a lot of surgeries and elective surgeries, and we know, Mark, of already the backlog that we're trying to get out of now from the first lockdown. Where the ICU capacity did put a strain, and we were starting to see that. So let's act now. Let's act decisively. We know in the William Osler system, as you heard from today, in Scarborough and other areas, they are having to make those decisions. And I'm not going to wait until I hear from people here who have had very preventable issues, go undiagnosed or untested, because that's happened here, and the imperative was to act now.
David, it seems from what I looked at so far that the Costco's and the Walmarts can stay open and continue to sell all their wares, which is clothing and such. And I think that's where we're at the point now with many small businesses that are getting closed down because they're not selling the grocery part, as to why those businesses should be able to continue to sell what they sell rather than just the groceries themselves.
Well, first off, I would say, I mean, understanding the very legitimate concerns there, the government has said that those big box stores that sell have delineated between a grocery store and a big box store that has a grocery component. So we've put fairly strict restrictions on capacity in those box stores, if you will, and then made it much more, I would encourage folks to go to your local grocery stores. Go there for the essentials. Don't go to your box stores right now, because they're under different restrictions. But obviously, people have to go what's easiest for them. But let's limit it to one trip out and back. But we have put at 25% capacity restrictions on those box stores, as well as restrictions just on numbers for our food stores, which will be open, our grocery stores, and we have supports in place for our small businesses, up to $20,000 for our small businesses. Fixed costs, we're talking property taxes, we're talking electricity, we're talking wages. There are programs in place, rent as well, to help with those fixed costs. And I can't stress enough for anyone watching that knows of a business or that owns or operates a business that's been affected, reach out to me. Let's start that conversation today.
I was just going to say, David, for these small businesses that are going to get locked down again for a second time, I know that today it was announced that the small business support grant is available up to 20,000. How do they qualify, or how do they start the ball rolling to start working to get those funds in the door for them?
They can reach out to my office right away. The specific Ontario Small Business Support Grant that I mentioned to you that we just launched in a matter of days, that will be eligible in January. And why we're using April as a litmus test, you just at the top of the show there mentioned the end of March and April when we had the only other lockdown. We're using that as a litmus test because we can't wait until someone shows losses at the end of January. That's too late. We got to get support in their hands now, which is why we're using that April over April metric. So if you look back at April of this year versus April of last year, chances are you would have experienced a loss as a result of that first lockdown. You're eligible for that support again, up to $20,000 if it's a 20% loss. And for the food sector and food service sector, that are doing takeout, I mean, I know many have done well with the takeout piece. For those who haven't, or for those who are struggling, again, there are supports with those fixed costs, rents, the electricity costs, and other fixed wage costs. And again, I'm here to support through that.
We heard, David, about education today. We heard about K-8. We've heard about the high school students. What about the university students that are heading back? Is anything changing in that portfolio, or when they are heading back to school?
No, that's a great question. So many are closing the schools on a temporary basis. We have allowed in-person instruction for essential trades and for healthcare professions as well. So everyone else, I mean, we have an online platform that we supported them with last summer, where we met with a number of our institutions to support with the online platform, exam proctoring, also maintaining that database exclusively here in Ontario for the questions, but also working with eCampus Ontario to bring things online. And I know the Minister of Education will be making additional announcements for K-12. We see a slightly extended Christmas holidays will go online. Obviously, elementary back in class before high school. I think that's reflective of an understanding that when you're in high school, you're able to be home alone or home alone for shorter, a half a day, et cetera, periods of time. And you don't require that as intensive hands-on support as an elementary school student would. But recognizing those realities, expect additional announcements to support with that online learning to come soon.
So, David, final word to you, to the residents of Northumberland, Peterborough South, with the recent announcement and of obviously going into lockdown on Boxing Day.
Yeah, I mean, I just would say this is incredibly difficult. I didn't think 2.5 years in to my first term that we would find ourselves in this circumstance, but we have. And you've elected a government to act decisively. Again, I would say, we're far from perfect. Everybody is navigating this. As I said, there's no playbook, but I would say Ontario, relative to jurisdictions of our size on this continent worldwide, cases per capita, we're doing an exceptionally good job. We're also, amidst the global pandemic, dealing with structural healthcare issues like medium-sized hospital funding, which we increased, like brand new facilities for long-term care, hospice care, which we now have 3 when we had 1 when I was first elected just 2 years ago. We're dealing with those structural issues on our healthcare system amidst a global pandemic. But you elected us to deal with multiple things at the same time, but also to make decisive decisions to protect the health and well-being of Ontarians. That's what we're doing. I understand this is difficult. I understand this is incredibly difficult on our small businesses. This is not equal. This is being disproportionately borne by our small businesses. So I would end by saying to everybody, go out of your way, please. Purchase gift cards, support local, reach out to your local businesses. If you're wondering if they've reached out, tell them, reach out to our MPP for supports. If they're not, let's work on examining ways that we can get supports in their hands. And please support local.